So you got a great story, man. I'm looking forward to delving into it and getting into your album. But before we do, 4 years ago, we were wrapping our heads around this global pandemic, and it
Man.
really ripped through the artistic community in its own way. How did you get through that time period, and how did it influence this album and where you're at now?
Sure, man, that's a great place to start and a great question for all of us, right?
Yeah.
Um, and well, when 4 years ago I was finishing my master's degree, and so yeah, like when everything shut down in March of 2020, I had 2 months left of school, and I was in the middle of Indiana, in a small town, and I was excited. I was at this point, that was 7 straight years of school. I was like, I'm so excited to get to a city. And at that point, there was no work anywhere, right? And especially for a graduate, I was going to a new place where no one really knew who I was at the time. So, funny enough, I actually moved back to my parents' place for a month, and I told myself I'm not going to move to Chicago unless I get a teaching job or some kind of music job where I can sustain myself financially. And so I actually I have an education degree as well. And I ended up teaching remotely a lot, teaching like this via Zoom, and also doing a lot of like like kids having masks on, but being like 15 feet away. And I did that for 2 years when I first moved to the city, and I was teaching at 8 schools a week, running around Chicago, driving everywhere, and yeah, it was a grind for sure. When I
Yeah.
first moved here, it was a major grind. But I'm grateful that I was able to work in music, in the arts. Like a lot of folks, that was the end of their career, their arts career. When the pandemic happened, they had to pivot and move somewhere else just to make ends meet. And I'm very grateful that I had the opportunity to teach, to meet a lot of educators here in town, but also meet a lot of musicians through the teaching. Also, I was playing like at outdoor jam sessions. I was playing at outdoor festivals or whatever it may be, when I was in the city when I first moved here to Chicago, just trying to make ends meet. So I was playing as much as I was teaching, but that was a tough first introduction to the city in 20 August of 2020 is when I moved here.
Wow.
Um, but yeah, there is a lot of the album that we're going to talk about today has been composed during that time period, and a few after. Um, and so I would say just it kind of shaped me. A thing that find very, I try to be an optimistic human being when things come my way, regardless of the situation. And what actually was really great is, I had 7 years of school, a lot of information thrown at me, and I had time where, I mean, we all had time. We were sitting at home, we were trying to make ends meet, but also like we had a lot more time at home. And what I did with that time is I just practiced my butt off. You
Yeah.
know, I got to dive into the things I was learning in school that I didn't necessarily maybe have the time at the time, or get deeper into those ideas and those practices. And I'm super grateful that I had, 2 years of a lot of practice time
Yeah.
following studies to just like really like try to soak in more of that material that I was taught for all that time. So I'm grateful for the time, as much as it was also very difficult on our world. But yeah, so that's kind of my story when it comes to the pandemic.
So the new album is Guidance and Gratitude. It's your debut. That's a pretty big deal. Your first shout into the jazz world. How did you artistically put this one together?
Yeah, I'm really excited about it. This album, I didn't know it until about a year ago when I put my mind to making this happen. But I started writing these tunes 9 years ago in 2015, and there's 9 tunes on the album, 9 tunes in 9 years, and each tune is about a specific experience or a relationship, um, or a change of location. Like I wrote a tune about moving to Chicago, and I live on a very busy, fun, exciting street in Chicago on the southwest side. And actually, I was sitting in this exact spot when I was writing this tune called Urban Motion, which is the first tune on the album about this neighborhood, about moving to Chicago. It was during the pandemic times. Um, So basically, it's about this long. I mean, I was 20 when I started writing this album. I'm going to be 29 when the album drops. There's just so much growth that happened over those 9 years, and these 9 tunes encapsulate each one is a little like microcosm of events that really like pushed me and guided me to where I am today. And so it's very meaningful. Each one is very like specifically meaningful about a specific time, and it kind of transports me back into that moment of my life when I was 20 or when I was 23 or 25, anytime during those 9 years. So it's special. It holds a really special place, and I feel like it's a great time to document almost this decade of growth for me. It feels right, you know?
Yeah. What are you hoping the listener gets from this album?
Yeah, you know what? My background um, when it comes to music is I grew up in the church. My dad, and he's also a band director, but we were a family that was at church 3 times a week, and he was a worship leader there. And I also really have studied a lot of film scores. And the two things that those kind of have in common is that they almost 100% deal with emotion. They deal with deep. It's not necessarily the chords or the rhythms and which is also exciting. There's lots of that in the music. Don't get me wrong. Um, but when it comes to these tunes, what I'm feeling is just very raw emotion, and each tune has very specific identities. And so, I have some strings on some tunes, and those strings are so emotional and so impactful when it kind of elevates that feeling of emotion. It's very cinematic in nature. And so I don't want to tell the listener what I want them to feel. I want them to feel whatever they feel, but what I want is emotion. What I want is for us to just feel the music and feel the humanity within the music. And I want them to make it their own. But at the very least, all I can ask for is a reaction, an emotional reaction. If I get an emotional reaction, that's what music's for. It's
Yeah.
to bond us. Sometimes it makes us feel nervous, like in a horror movie, or
Yep.
sometimes it makes us feel love or joy or excitedness or things like that. And all of that can be found in these 9 tunes. And I want the listener to do that for themselves. I'm not trying to make anyone say this is about this, so you got to feel this way. That's not it for me. But I
Yeah,
just feel something.
for sure. What was the first live jazz show you ever saw that blew you away?
The first live jazz show, man, that's a great. You know what? There's two that stick out in my mind. When I was a sophomore in high school or a junior in high school, I can't remember. I was in this. I went to a school up in Wisconsin, where I'm from, and there was this jazz festival in this tiny town of Shawano, Wisconsin. And the guest artists were Wayne Bergeron
Yep.
and Eric Marienthal, the LA guys.
Yeah.
And they came, and I never heard horns played that way live in my I think and that's the first time I can really remember like jazz musicians, like I'm feeling that raw energy. I'd been to a lot, I mean, with my dad being a band director, I'd been to a lot of wind band and orchestra and pep band and stuff like that, but really a true jazz show, that's the one I can remember. And I remember when it was part of this like competitive jazz festival, and I got chosen as like one of the outstanding soloists of the festival. And so I got to go on stage and play a blues with next to Wayne, and he just cut me so hard. I mean, I was 16 or whatever, but
Yeah.
uh, that was the first time I really could feel it. He was standing right next to me. I'm like, oh, this is what it is, you
Yeah.
know? And so that was really impactful. Not too long after that, I listened to Sean Jones' record Roots,
Yeah.
which I believe I came out in 2006 or 2008. I can't remember, but I think it's 2006. But anyway, one of his earlier records. And that one, since I still listen to that, but that was the first, like I listened to that the first time and I said, I want to do that. And
Yeah.
if I can be half the trumpet player that Sean Jones is, I'd be happy. But
Yeah.
he, that one was super impactful. And then I went and saw him. I came down a 4-hour drive from my hometown about a year or two later, and I saw him at the Jazz Showcase in Chicago with his band. And ever since that, I've just been chasing every day, just chasing, trying to do that, you know?
Yeah.
And it was really meaningful to me. So those are the two that are very vivid in my brain. I'm not sure if that was the first jazz show, but those were the first impactful jazz shows, you know?
Yeah. 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 That's what I'm going for. So I'm
Yeah.
curious. Was it always woven into your DNA growing up around music that you were going to become a musician? Was this always your dream?
You know, when I was in high school is when it really came to that decision of like, oh, I can do this for a living. I can chase this for a living. I think I remember growing. I mean, when I was in junior high, I wanted to be a pilot. When I was, there was all these. When I was like early high school, I was like, yeah, maybe I'll go to the NBA like every other high school basketball player.
Yeah.
And I played sports growing up and things like that. And I'm really grateful for that experience because I think like being a trumpet player and the discipline of what sports give you are very intertwined for me, and so I'm really grateful for all of those lessons. But yeah, I think it was probably around that show, like when I was a junior or sophomore, that I really was like, okay, this is what I want to do.
Yeah.
Uh, so yeah, yeah, and ever since then, it's just been, this is what we're doing, this is where we're going. I'm gonna
So
make it happen.
totally. So now that you're in the fold, now that you got an album out, you're doing live shows, teaching and all of
Yeah,
that. What do you like the best about being a professional musician?
man. It's the relationships, it's the people. Also, it's the creativity. I love the creativity. I love that every time I get on the bandstand, it's unique and fresh and exciting. Um, but number one is the people. I get to meet people from all over the world. I get to make music with my best friends. I get to see the most amazing places in the world, and yeah, I don't take that for granted. But it's like I mean, even to like, I'll have a gig later tonight, and I'll have a couple gigs this weekend, and I'm just so excited to hang out with my friends and meet people that are excited about music or excited about life. It's just an energy that is really inspiring, and I think that's what keeps me going. I just love the human aspect of what this is.
So why do you love this music we call jazz?
I think similarly what I just said, that the creativity. Um, I also love learning. And jazz music is so deep and so vast and so broad that even the greats are still learning. And
Yeah.
there's a ladder. There's like I always say this to my private students. I'm like, we're on a ladder together. I might be a couple rungs higher than you, and you might be a little bit, but we're both chasing the same thing. And there's people above me, and there always will be. And I think it's very humbling, and embracing that has like, it's more of a life lesson than it is just a music lesson. But the thing I love about jazz is just that. It's like I can always learn. I can learn new things. I can play with new people that are going to teach me things on the bandstand. Um, it's just yeah, it's kind of parallel to life in that way too.
Yeah.
And that's meaningful to me. And I don't want to be in, and there's nothing wrong with this, but for the person that I am, I always want to be growing. Growth is, if it just feels, I feel alive.
Yeah.
I feel that inspiration, and that's just meaningful to me. So that's why I love the music. There's also, I mean, I could talk practically about the music, why I like it, and like who doesn't love that swing feel, and who doesn't love the way that Miles plays, or Lee plays, or Freddie, or who, or you name it. But that goes without saying. I'm a jazz musician. We all listen to that stuff.
Yeah.
But it's that depth of humanity that is just so beautiful about the music.
So speaking of that swing and that feel, we get off our Zoom call, time machine pulls up in front of your house. You can go anywhere back in time and see one cat live. Where are you going?
Oh my goodness, that is an amazing question. Wow. Um, I would go. There's a few places that I would go. Do I only get one place?
No, no, we can take a swing. Yeah.
Okay. I would go. Um, I would go to the House of Tribes the night that Wynton Marsalis recorded live at the House of Tribes,
Yeah.
or I guess it's one or the other. The Vanguard, when he recorded live at the Village Vanguard. Those are my two favorite of his albums. Um, Another one, and this is, uh, I would love to sit in the room, and this is a little more slept on in the larger scheme of what jazz is, but I would love to be in the recording studio of Oscar Peterson +1 with Clark Terry.
Yeah.
That is a Brotherhood of Man is a really special recording for me. Um, I just love I love that. I love that album. Um, and then let me see. I'm giving you my top three, I guess.
Yeah.
Uh, I would have to pick. I would have to pick like well, this one actually would get them all, but an early Roy record, and I can't even pick which Roy record I would pick,
Yeah.
but just like any of those early fiery '90s Roy records. But I was thinking of the Three Trumpeters, where Wynton, Nicholas Payton, and Roy are recording together in the studio, and that whole album of Nicholas Payton's is one of my favorites too. So that would be like three legends in a room, man.
Yeah.
I don't know if you could beat that, but I'm talking all trumpet. There's a lot of other places I could be too, but I mean, I'm a trumpet player, so
Yeah.
you're gonna get good records. Yeah,
I totally dig it. So at the end of
yeah,
the day, everyone has a perception of you, family, friends, students, fans, but you
sure,
run the show. What's your
sure.
perception of you? Who do you think you are?
Man, whew.
This is the
That's
therapy hour.
yeah, right. Man, I feel like what is my what is my perception of me? That's tough. I mean, the thing is, I feel like my perception of me is always changing and always growing, and it's always getting, um, just yeah, just learning about things. So I feel like you asked me that question today, you can ask me in a year, and it's going to
Yeah.
change.
Yeah.
And then you ask me in 5 years. I hope it changes. I hope in 5 years I'm not the same person. I hope my perception is different. Right now, how I feel is like I feel like I'm in a pretty amazing place in life of transition. And what I mean by that is, I got out of school 4 years ago, and then I went on a world tour a year and a half after that, and I hit 31 countries in 4 continents, and that just like talk about perception changing of myself and of the world. Like, man, everything changed when that happened. And obviously the pandemic was right before that. And so for me as a musician right now, I feel like I feel like I have a really strong story to tell when it comes to this album and to share who I am as a human through music. I feel like uh, just I feel like there's just a lot that's going to happen over the next couple years because this transition phase. I feel like this is the first time as an adult that I have a specific message to say and a specific thing to give to the world, where I had been searching for that for the last 9 years, for the last 15 years, for 28 years, if you want to say. And I feel like, man, I found my identity. I found who I am. I found what I want to chase after. And I feel like that's a brand that people can latch on to, whether they want to or not. That's up for them to decide. But I perceive myself as an ever evolving, growing human being that wants to share who I am right now with the world when it comes to this album, and it feels like the right time.
Right on. So the new album, Zachary, is Guidance and Gratitude. If people want to pick this up in earnest in the right way, see you live, any of the good business, where do they go?
Yeah, so you go to Shifting Paradigm Records. That's where this debut album is dropping. There's a pre-order right now. The album drops on June 28th. I will have physicals at all of my live shows from here until then and after that. So if you're itching to get it before June 28th, just come to a show. I have a single release show. We have our first single dropping on May 17th, so pretty soon. The single release show will be on May 29th at the Whistler in Chicago. And then album release is June 28th, and the album release show is July 12th at Constellation here in Chicago. And so I'm really excited. The Constellation show is going to be absolutely phenomenal. Incredible band, an incredible venue. I'm really, really excited about that. So if you want to pick up the album, that's probably the best place to come. There's just going to be a celebration. There's going to be so many people from my life and from the Chicago area and abroad, people coming in for the show. It's going to be a big party, and you don't want to miss it. But yeah, also it'll be on streaming services and all stuff like that. I just would love, just support live music, support music in general, and whatever way you get your music.
You're off and running, my man. Thank you so much for taking a minute out. Best of luck with the release. I'm looking forward to getting it on the show.
Awesome. Thanks, Joe.
Hey, jazz fans, Joe Domino here, the host of the weekly Neon Jazz radio show and regular interview series being produced and distributed from Lee Summit, Missouri. We are quite excited to let you know about the first annual Lee Summit Jazz Fest taking place this summer on June 22nd, 2024 at the Bridge Space located at 210 Southwest Market Street. There will be 8 robust acts, including the Back Alley Brass Band and the great Lee Summit Jazz Orchestra. There will also be art vendors and food trucks to make this a must-attend event. All details can be found at www.bridgespace.us/jazz. We will see you there.